Hello, Dr. Hyman. We're so excited to be here with you talking about aging gracefully, preparing for longevity, and elevating our quality of life. I am Connie Zach, co-owner of Sunlighten, and I'm joined by our long-term partner and friend to Sunlighten, Dr. Mark Hyman. Dr. Hyman is a practicing family physician and internationally recognized leader, speaker, educator, and advocate in the field of functional medicine. He is also the head of strategy and innovation of the Cleveland Clinic for Functional Medicine. And this is the most impressive part. 13 times, Dr. Hyman, that you have been a New York Times bestselling author, host of the leading health podcast. That's so impressive. The Doctor's Pharmacy and longtime friend. I am so honored and thrilled. Before we get started on the questions, I just had to share, you can't see this on Zoom, but this is a real thing. This is my book that I keep in my office, and the pages are so loved and tattered, and I don't know if you can see some of the some of the highlights and everything from this book. Where you recommended Sunlighten way back 15 years ago. And this was my everything 15 years ago. So I had to bring this out of the archives to show you that.
Thank you.
It's more.
My second book.
Yes, after Ultra Prevention, right? Wasn't Ultra Prevention the first? Yeah. So anyway, I brought that out of my office to show you how loved it is. So let's get started on some of the topics that are on a lot of people's minds, specifically about aging and aging gracefully. So let's just start with the basics of what does aging gracefully mean to you?
Well, I think that the challenge is that most of us witness what I think of as abnormal aging, and we think that's normal, but it's really not. It's abnormal aging, which is a decline into decrepitude, disability, dysfunction, and losing your health. And that is not an inevitable part of aging. Despite the fact that 6 out of 10 Americans have a chronic illness, despite the fact that most people suffer from some type of chronic ailment as they get older, it's because of how we're living. It's because of our diet, because of environmental toxins, lack of exercise, stress, and a host of other factors that are really causing a decline in our health. And we don't really see vibrant aging. I mean, I just watched this beautiful documentary with Carl Reiner and Dick Van Dyke and Norman Lear, and all these guys are in their 90s. And Dick Van Dyke is he's limber, dancing up a storm. His wife is 45 years younger than him. He's mentally completely sharp, fully engaged in life, creative still. And I think that is a model for all of us. And he's, been active his whole life, exercising. So it's really, really important to understand that we actually don't inevitably have to succumb to what we think of as this aging process. We can do so much to keep ourselves vital, strong, and healthy as we get older.
So that's great. So that leads me to one of my favorite questions that when I was reading, you reading your book, What the Heck Should I Eat? Regarding food, and which I love. It's so easy to read and just it has such great content. When I was reading it, I was thinking, okay, knowing that we had this conversation coming up, if you could help just say, okay, what are the top, right? What are the top foods or vegetables that we should make sure we include to prepare us so we can be like Dick Van Dyke and and some of those people that are living this great quality of life? What would that be?
Yeah, the way I sort of think about it is, what are the harmful foods that you should get rid of, and what are the protective foods you need to eat, right? So you can eat all the broccoli you want, but if you're guzzling, 64 ounces of soda every day, it's not going to help you, right? So you have to get rid of the harmful foods. And for most of Americans, it's ultra-processed foods, so packaged processed foods that are pretty much high in sugar and starch and refined oils. So if you can really eliminate industrial packaged processed food from your diet, you're going to go a long way to promoting health. Sugar, and particularly sugar and starch of all kinds. Even if you're eating healthy starch, you could be eating whole wheat bread, and that is also not good for you. So sugar and starch are biggest drivers of aging, causes cancer, heart disease, diabetes, dementia, and many, many other things. On the other hand, we need to eat protective foods, and those are what I talk about in the food, what the heck should I eat, which are, in each category, what are the things you should be eating that have the most medicinal benefit? Obviously, the plant-rich diet. I don't say plant-based. I don't think we
Hmm.
should all be vegans or vegetarian. I do think that we should be eating probably 75% of our plate as vegetables. So when I prepare a meal, I make sure I prepare 2 or 3 dishes of vegetables, and the protein is a side dish. Or the animal protein, for example, I have that as side. Sometimes I don't. I'm going to have a vegetarian dinner, but I think that the key is really to focus on that. And the second is make sure you get a lot of good healthy fats: avocados, olive oil, nuts and seeds. Healthy fats promote longevity. Lots of things that are pre and probiotic foods to keep your gut healthy because your gut declines as you age. So lots of fiber, which is all from plant-rich foods. And of course, prebiotic foods like miso, tempeh, sauerkraut, kimchi, fermented foods that actually have probiotics. And, you can get yogurts now that are coconut yogurt or even non-dairy yogurt, sheep and goat yogurt. So it's really possible to have really health promoting foods. So it's really getting rid of the bad stuff, putting in the good stuff. And it's pretty much common sense.
That's really helpful. I love that, getting rid of the bad. So can we talk specifically, you've mentioned sugar, and something that I hear a lot of people ask questions about is gluten, specifically if you're not celiac, right? It's like, well, I don't have, an allergic reaction. And now it's even comes up at restaurants where, because that's how I eat. And they're like, so are you like allergic, or like give us the scale? I'm like, oh my God, I just don't want it. But like, so tell me like your thoughts on that whole, the gluten piece, as far as, especially
Yeah.
as you age.
Yeah. So I think that there are challenges with gluten, even if you're not celiac. And 1% of the population is celiac, about 30 to 35% have the celiac gene. Probably 20% of the population has real, what we call non-celiac gluten sensitivity, where they have antibodies or no, it's not good for them. They're not true celiac, which is based on a biopsy diagnosis. And then there's a whole group who also have other reactions to gluten, because there's many things in gluten and wheat that are not healthy for you. So part of the problem is with the wheat that we eat. We're not eating heirloom wheat. We're not eating, einkorn wheat, or the wheat that our Sumerian ancestors ate, with the staff of life and bread and so forth. I think give us this day our daily bread, right? It's like a religious commandment. But the truth is that if we can go back and eat the bread we ate, we'd probably be better off. There are real differences in the amount of gluten in these traditional wheats. There's not the typically grown with full of glyphosate, which is a weed killer that is sprayed in a lot of wheat in America that causes microbiome destruction. It's not the dwarf wheat, which is a hybridized form of wheat that leads to increased amounts of starch, but also increased gliadin. So there's much more inflammatory gluten proteins in there that are causing a problem and cause leaky gut and cause all kinds of inflammatory conditions. And basically, inflammation is what we call inflammaging. And
Oh,
that's
that's
because
a great way of putting it. I
it's an
love that.
inflammatory condition that's really driven in part by our diet. Sugar, starch, gluten, and dairy are probably the most inflammatory foods we eat.
Oh, that is, I love that, Pearl. Thank you for that. Inflammaging. So is that why that when, like when I travel, I notice that I actually lost weight when I went to Europe, and then, which was, odd, and because I ate so
Right.
much, but then I also noticed, like, for example, in Italy, where I did have pizza, like, but I felt great. So is one of the reasons because of the type, when you mentioned the actual type of wheat and the type of
Yeah.
flour, okay. So that's,
Yeah. So,
go ahead.
yeah. No. So I think that people in this country should be very cautious about eating any wheat products. And aside from the fact that most of the way we eat wheat is flour, and flour is just like sugar. So if you're having a cookie, you know, then if you're having a bowl of sugar or a piece of bread, your body doesn't know the difference, right?
Right, right. That's helpful. So one of the things I wanted to touch on is just kind of looking back. I feel like I talk to my kids all the time about, the wisdom I've gleaned and trying to impart, trying to teach them at 10 and 12 how, the things I've learned. And so for you, if you could turn back the clock, when you were in your 20s, what are the things that you wish you would have known that would have, prepared you better for the, aging process?
Well, thankfully I got into this stuff very early. So, I had a gym teacher, Mr. Gibson, who taught me the benefits of exercise through watching this movie that I still remember the whole movie, which is
Which
pretty
movie?
amazing. I don't even know the title of it, but it was a movie about all these people who were athletes who you just would never imagine. A guy with no feet running the Boston Marathon, a guy who's
Oh,
Larry Lewis, who's like 105 years old and would run 5 miles to work and work as a waiter all day and then run 5 miles back across the Golden Gate Bridge. Just crazy stories like this of people who were older athletes, and it just got me going. So I started running, and then I really got into healthy eating. My sister was a vegetarian, and I said you should be more conscious around food. I lived with a nutritionist when I was in college, and we made delicious, healthy food, and I was a vegetarian for 10 years. So I've been doing yoga, exercise. I've never really ever been overweight. I mean, I've gained maybe 5 or 10 pounds here or there when different things happen, but I never really been overweight. I've always exercised, unless I couldn't for some reason. Even like I just had back surgery 3 weeks ago, but now I'm swimming half an hour every day in the water. I'm walking every day for half an hour. So I'm doing what I can, not my usual, but I think it's so important not to just let your limitations, quote, limitations stop you, which is mostly up here, right?
right.
So I think that's really key. So I think what I would say to people is that what you eat matters. It's not something you can ignore, and the earlier you start, the better. And that paying attention to the idea that food is medicine is probably the most powerful thing you can think of in guiding your food choices. Because if you think of food as calories, it's like, well, I'm just not overweight, so what does it care? I'm young. But actually, food is information. If you're eating, toxic fats and tons of sugar and processed food, and you're not eating all the good protective foods, you're driving your body into a state of disease. Now, it may not show up tomorrow, but it's a progressive decline that happens almost invisibly, so that when you're 30, you're less vital than when you're 20, and 40, you're less vital than when we're 40, and so forth. So I now I'm at 60. I'm more healthy, or healthier. Healthier, I guess is the word. I'm healthier. I'm physically stronger. I
Mm-hmm.
have more muscle mass than I did when I was 30.
Mm-hmm.
So
That sounds.
and I think it's because I now know the science of actually how to optimize my health better. And I
Mm-hmm.
knew a lot then, but I'm just saying, any point in life, you can reverse the clock. I have people
Mm-hmm.
who are 65 with every imaginable horrible disease who follow the idea of food as medicine and literally reverse all the diseases and lose 100 pounds. So it's really possible to do.
Mm-hmm. So on that note, there's just so many questions I have just with what you said. So I'm trying to prioritize them. So one is that's so powerful of saying, today that you feel that you're stronger. I mean, that's so inspirational, and it's counterintuitive, to what people think, right? That, and I hear even from mom, I'm always telling her, stop, like what you say comes your way is my kind of little Connie Zach,
Yeah, well, for
mantra.
sure, your mindset, sure.
Right, right. And so, I'm like, don't say, she's like, it just is normal because I'm getting older. I'm like, stop, stop that because I feel stronger and et cetera. So will you tell us what motivates you? Like how do you keep yourself motivated to continue to swim when it's only 3 weeks after back surgery, for example?
I mean, it's a mindset, right? It's like, what is my goal? I mean, my goal is to do whatever I want. And if I want to go climb a mountain and see the view from a mountaintop, I want to do that. If I want to go skiing, I want to do that. If I want to go on a trek somewhere to the Himalayas, to Tibet, I want to be able to do that. And I have to keep my body functioning to do that. I want to be able to play with my kids and my grandkids if I have those. I
Right.
want to be able to do the work I want to do in the world. I want to have energy and be feeling good so I can be a better partner in relationship and a better parent, so I can be effective in my work and do the things that matter to me and give me meaning and purpose. And if you feel like crap, you don't want to do any of it. You just want to sit in bed and watch Netflix and binge on cookies,
You're right.
and so, it's a feedback loop. So I feel good. And then when I cheat, let's say, And I only really cheat on real stuff. So I'm not like cheating on Doritos, but I might have, like coconut ice cream with,
Right.
like organic chocolate and, some walnuts or something. But I notice when I do that, I might not feel as good. So it's always the experience of knowing your body so well that when you do something that's not good for it, you pay
Mm-hmm.
attention, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like people know I drank too much, I got a hangover, but like you can get like these mini hangovers from eating crappy food and not
Mm-hmm.
eating enough good food.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. Totally agree. I'm going to come back because there's some other things I want to dive into, but I want to make sure. I know we don't have all the time in the world and I have a lot of things that I want to talk to you about. So I want to skip over some of my mindset questions that I want to get back to and get to kind of, the big buzz right now with the coronavirus, and a couple of things I would love to hear from you, Dr. Hyman. First, this was an exercise we did at Sunlighten during about maybe 6 weeks during into isolation, where we had a Friday and we just had everybody on Zoom and we had them take time to reflect on really what this, isolation has meant to them, and if there's anything that new habit they've done, any new tradition, or just mentally, like what is it, how has it impacted them? So how would you, like, for just not for your doctor piece, but just how would you say, what's your personal reflection during that time frame?
Well, it's at first, it's terrifying, right? Everything's unstable, people losing their jobs. We don't know what's going to happen with the virus. So I remember, in March being very, very concerned and, it had a huge impact on my practice. And we really, had to lay off some employees and cut people's salaries. That was really hard. And everybody pitched in and we transitioned to telemedicine. And so I started to adapt. So I used to do all my podcasts in person. Now I do them over Zoom. It's not as good. It's not as much as fun as I'd like, but we figure out how to be resilient, adapt, and pivot. And if you are not good at that, it's a challenging moment. I'm always of the mindset, you make a lemonade out of lemons, right? And that's just my nature. Not everybody's like that, but I use it a time to, get my house in order and fix this and fix that and spend more time with my wife and spend more time talking to friends on Zoom and having more time to read and be still. And I've not, had this opportunity. I've really been traveling probably 50% of the time for 25 years. So to sleep in the same bed for 4 months is a totally novel experience for me. And I'm really liking it. But
That's
I
what
think
was my
it's
next
challenging.
question was if you liked it.
Of course, yeah. And I like it, but it's also not great for so many people, and so many people are suffering, and it's such a challenge and such a heartbreak for people, both in terms of the chronic illness that is driving so many people to get really sick from COVID, which is driven mostly by food, and also the social isolation, exacerbating loneliness and disconnection, which is already an epidemic in this country. So I feel like it's really it's really a moment for us to sort of stop and go, what do we want to be doing with ourselves and our family and our work, and how do we want to be after all this is over? Like how do we want to go back to a life that is better?
Yep. And so medically now, having your MD hat on, Dr. Hyman's medical advice, how does America, how can we, brace for this next, call it second wave or whatever you want to call it, but as the virus continues, what is your thoughts on
I've
that?
written a lot about this and talked a lot about it, but if people want to learn about how to really protect themselves and build resilience, they should go to drhyman.com/C19. That's drhyman.com/C19 for COVID-19. And they can read an article I wrote 3 months ago. I'm going to be updating it soon, but it was really about what you need to eat, what lifestyle techniques that you can use, what supplements you should take, what the treatments are out there, and really sort of giving people a sense of what's possible to do for you. I think the worst thing you can do now is sort of feel sorry for yourself and start eating crap and binging on bad food, and because you become inflamed and you become a sitting duck for a bad case of COVID, because the more inflamed you are, if it hits you, the more severe the illness, the more likely you are to be in the hospital, the more likely you are to end up in the ICU, and the more likely you are to die. So obesity is a big risk factor, and chronic disease is a big risk factor. So they're all driven by what we're eating. I think this is more than ever a time to focus on your own personal resilience and what I call immunorejuvenation, which is a way to rejuvenate your immune system through these techniques that I shared.
Well, thanks, and thanks for that resource, because it's we get asked at Sunlighten, I mean, all the time. We're not doctors here. We don't claim to be, but because we are in the wellness space and have helped people boost the immune system and increase your core temperature, and we get asked a lot of questions. So that's a really great resource for the Sunlighten community. I really appreciate it. And then also on the immunity piece, because when everything hit, my cell phone and everything just blew up. I was getting so many questions about, our 3-in-1 technology and heat shock proteins and hormesis and all the things that we have written about and we have worked with thought leaders on. And, people are at home and they're in their sauna, how do I do it? So from your perspective, I would love to hear, as far as when relating to hormesis and heat shock proteins, boosting the immune system, how can people, is this, good for people? How should they incorporate this into their routine if they should?
Yeah, so you used a big word there, hormesis. And what it means is you stress the body a little bit and it comes back stronger. So if you fast, for example, it's a stress, but it actually creates a whole repair reaction in the body, which then reduces inflammation and helps your immune system. Same thing with exercise. It's a stress on your body, especially you lift weights, you do interval training. That's not fun. You want to run really fast for half an hour and throw up. That actually creates a rebound of wellness. And so does a sauna. Saunas have that same effect. They heat you up and you get really hot. You're not supposed to have a temperature, but that actually leads to a response in the body to create healing. And it helps reduce stress hormones. It helps to improve your heart rate variability. It helps to increase your metabolism. It helps to reduce inflammation. So it helps you remove toxins from your system. So there's a lot of benefits to saunas. And, a lot of cultures have used these for thousands of years, like, whether it's sweat lodges in the Americans or whether it's the Finnish saunas. This is the Russian baths. I mean, this is not just a new thing. This has been around for a long time.
Right. So as far as stress, you touched on that, and right now, stress and anxiety can really be hard for people to move from stress and anxiety to do any type of exercise, to do any type of movement. The way you're speaking about it, it's like you said, it's a mindset. It's natural to you, but how can we help people, navigate through, especially if they're at home and they're not, they don't have a pool, they don't have maybe some.
You don't need anything. You don't really need anything. You need your body weight. That. You could jog in place. You could turn on the music and dance. There's so many ways. Calisthenics. I mean, you can go online. There's just dozens and dozens of ways to get free content, to do an exercise class, to do Zumba class. There's no reason you can't. And I, honestly, I travel a lot, so it's very difficult for me to get in the gym to do weight training. But, since COVID, I've been doing it 4 times a week over Zoom with my trainer, and I do it on my own. And, I got a stationary bike. If you don't have the equipment, you can do other things. But, we can adapt, and it's, you can do the 7-minute workout, which is a free body weight workout from the New York Times. You can Google that, and there's I have the app, so there's ways and that's I think $50 a year for unlimited amounts of exercise trainings and things. So there's ways to do it. I think people often don't really want to.
Yeah.
I think only 8% of Americans exercise the
right.
required amount. But it's an inertia. It's hard. Yeah. It's hard to start, but once you get started, people start to like it. But there is a hurdle. Like if you haven't been doing it, to start is a little bit of a friction moment. But if you can, take a small step. Do 1 push-up, jog for 10 seconds in place. Do something. Start somewhere.
Right. Yeah. No, that's very, very helpful. And so but some people are, have this fear factor, right? And so you talked about this, I think, in a recent blog about just all the kind of limiting factors of fear and how the brain works with fear. There's so much fear. I was at the driving range yesterday. I just decided I'm going to learn, how to golf. And I was there, and there was these women that I could hear, they were so fearful, like their entire conversation, the energy that they were putting off. I just didn't want any part of it because it's, I feel like it's contagious. And I just wanted to remove myself. So my question to you is, a lot of people, I agree, don't want to do it, but then there are some people who are just a little bit afraid for whatever reason. And this just kind of gets back to that mindset. What would you say regarding how to get started and how to get out of that where you're stuck, that like stuck piece?
Well, it's always easier to do it with a buddy. So if you can find somebody with this, your partner or friend or somebody to take a walk with, do something fun with, I think it's really a great place to start. I think also connect to your why. If you connect to your why, then it's much easier to get started. So I feel like it's sort of one step at a time, but I do think it's really important to get the right mindset in order to do this, and figure out the why is going to help you do that.
Okay, that's a tangible. That's what I was looking for. Something like really tangible that we can share with people so that they can get started. And because once you get started, I mean, yes, you'll have some of the pain that goes with it, but it's like motion, right? It's just like doing something. And I just noticed, especially with coronavirus, there's so many different levels of, where people are in, resistance, and that we're trying to do is, enlighten whatever we can to help people educate themselves and get motivated so that they can, if they're at home, there's things you can do. Like you said, you don't, if you have a sunlight, great, but you don't need to have, you can just sit, you can do, like just use your body weight or dance. I love that. I love the dance tip. The visualization of that was awesome. So let's get back to mindset, especially as it relates to aging. What are some mental, there's such an issue right now with mental health, right? And I think, what are some ways, some things that people can do to help them get into, like, as far as just feeding the brain, right? Any type of, Dr. Hyman brain boost, mental hacks.
Well, your brain responds to everything you're doing to your body, right? Because they're connected. So your diet, sleep, exercise, meditation, the right supplements, all of those things are, quote, hacks that can help your brain. And it's honestly not rocket science. It's all the same things that help everything else, whether it's aging or chronic disease or diabetes. It also helps your brain. So the sugar is a real problem. Obviously, alcohol is a real problem for the brain. I think that not eating enough of the good fats is a problem. And of course, exercise creates all these side benefits for the brain. It increases something called BDNF, which is like miracle grow, that helps fertilize all the good brain cells. Meditation also reduces inflammation in the brain and helps to reset your nervous system and heal the brain. Sleep is critical for getting the lymphatic system going, which clears out the brain at night, sort of like the waste and garbage disposal. So all these things are really important. I think just a good multivitamin, vitamin D, fish oil. These are really essential things for the brain function because it needs all the B vitamins. And some people need more magnesium if they have anxiety, but it's pretty straightforward.
So any other, I know we're both, friends with Dave Asprey, who's like the consummate, hacker, any other, I love the vitamin D as kind of a tangible, something you can go out and get and incorporate. Any other type of Dr. Hyman mental hacks or brain hacks?
There are things that I use like NAD, which is an incredible compound that the body makes, but when you have more of it, it helps to really increase the brain function. I think getting on the right amount of good fats like omega-3s is really important. And there's a whole host of mitochondrial therapies that are great for brain function too. So, but I think living an anti-inflammatory life is really the key because inflammation causes brain issues. Fixing your gut also, people understand how much their brain is connected to your gut. And there's a book I just was checking out called "This Is Your Brain on Food," which is really by a Harvard psychiatrist who runs the Department of Nutritional Psychiatry and talks about the gut-brain connection and the microbiome and all sorts of mental disorders. So, yeah, very important.
Yeah, yeah. Have you, by any chance, have you seen or heard about the Dr. Raison study regarding depression? It's not like a widely published study, but I was following it, and specifically because it came to my attention because they were using whole body hyperthermia. So, which is
Yes.
a big word, obviously. So, which is just
That's, yeah.
increasing the body's core temperature, right? But anyway,
But this is not like a sauna. This is raising your temperature to like 107 degrees. It's a very different thing.
yeah, this one was a milder core temperature, this Dr. Raison study. And so they were just talking about ways at home, like, hot baths, just any type of heated environment. The end result was the brain, like the antidepressant result, like actually
Effect, sure.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
every
So
day I do hot and cold therapy. I get in the hot steam or my sauna and go in an ice bath. I do uh, hot baths as well. So I'm very focused on really taking care of my hot and cold therapies as a way of boosting my own health and reducing stress.
great, great. I wanted, one of my passionate topics is the topic of sleep. I've learned over the years that I am personally blessed. Like I sleep great, but I have so many friends, and it's just it seems like an epidemic with people that really, really struggle.
70% of Americans don't
It's
sleep right or enough.
right. And that really makes me so sad because you can't, like, I wake up and I'm like, okay, let's go. And so regarding sleep, there's so much information, what types of things, especially, as you age and your hormones change and just everything is happening, naturally with your body, anything that you would share that people can incorporate to give them a more restful sleep?
Yeah, I've written a lot about this. I think 20 tips to better sleep. I have a whole sleep course. If people go on my website, they can find my sleep course, which is a really great explanation of how to address all the variables. But in short, sleep is one of the most important things you do every day to not only sort of reset your biology, but to heal your brain and to consolidate memory and to sort of process your emotions and all sorts of stuff. But it's we live in a sleep disruptive culture with lots of light and a lot of light at night, particularly with the devices now we use at night, really disrupt our melatonin. So blue blocker glasses are a great way to do that. Having a no blue light lights, like you can get special
The
light bulbs for
amber.
your
Yeah,
right, for your bedroom. You can
I
make your
love
rooms
that.
really dark. You can have earplugs, and you also want to make sure you're not eating in a way that's going to disrupt your sleep, like eating late at night, eating a lot of sugar and processed foods will disrupt your sleep. Alcohol, sleep disruptive. Make sure you're not deficient in magnesium, which is a big factor for many people with sleep issues. Also, a lot of caffeine can disrupt sleep. So there's some just simple lifestyle things that are really powerful. Hot bath at night or sauna can be very helpful to sort of get you in a state of rest, and actually when your temperature is dropping after a sauna or a bath, you actually can get a better, deeper sleep. So there's a lot of science around sleep, and I think getting your sleep sorted is very important. And melatonin sometimes helps. There's a lot of things you can do, but it's sort of figuring out also what's causing it for you. Is it menopause? Is it magnesium deficiency? Is it something with your gut? Is it a thyroid issue? I mean, there's a lot of reasons. So it's important to be sort of a little bit of a detective to figure out why.
That's a great and helpful tip, is to kind of get to the source first and then kind of start to, because I hear all sorts of different things that people do, and it's a problem. So I appreciate your wisdom. I see that we're running out of time, so I do want to ask an important question about your since heart disease is such a major, problem in our society. I do want to get your perspective on, things that people can do, especially as they age, this reverse aging or slowing down aging, specifically related to heart disease and in your heart. Like, what are some ways and things they can do to help care for their heart in a better way?
Yeah, great question. I think, the fact is there isn't one way of living or eating that's good for heart disease, but it's going to cause Alzheimer's. Another one that's good for Alzheimer's is going to cause cancer. Another one's going to prevent cancer, but cause diabetes. It's the same for everything. It's all about reducing inflammation. It's about optimizing your biology. It's about fixing your gut. And it's not that hard to do. And I think it's if you understand that it's sort of one-stop shopping, eating right, exercise, sleep, meditation, the right supplements, it's the foundation for everything. So same thing with heart disease. But the biggest drivers of heart disease is not fat, it's sugar. Sugar is by number one the biggest driver of heart disease. Sugar and starch. When I say sugar, I mean sugar and starch. So whether it's whole wheat bread or a bowl of sugar, your body can't tell the difference, even if it's whole wheat. So it's really important to understand that that is the biggest driver. And I think if we want to really reduce our heart disease in this country, we should make sure we dramatically reduce our intake of starch and sugar and increase our intake of good fats and not worry about, all this crazy fear about fat. I think also getting rid of ultra processed foods. There's a lot of reasons that those are pretty toxic for us, for our gut and immune system. And it's also a disease of aging, right? So heart disease is also a disease of inflammation, just like every other age-related disease, whether it's cancer, heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, heart disease. They're all inflammaging. And so leading an anti-inflammatory lifestyle, like we've been talking about, is really the key to all of it.
I got it. This has been so incredibly helpful. I do want to say, on a personal note, I have followed your Dr. Mark's picks that I love. Like, keep doing that. I look forward to reading that. I think it's terrific. So I love. I have the Always Pan. The nonstick that I was.
That's really good. I love that.
Yeah. It was
place. Yeah.
Yes, the timing of that was amazing because I was looking around trying to figure out. I'm like, this whole nonstick thing it's got to go. Like, there's got to be a better way, because I love to cook and I love to eat, the way you've described. And I don't like the cookware that I have, and it's been bothering me. And so when I saw that, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's in my head. He knows that I'm in the market for it. So, I just keep doing that. It's great. I read it, it's the perfect length. I read it every Friday. So, thank you for that.
People can subscribe to Mark's Picks at drhyman.com. They can also, listen to my podcast, Doctor's Pharmacy, wherever they get their podcasts, for sure.
Yeah. If people are listening, if you don't subscribe to Mark's Picks, the podcast as well is really awesome. I love the Mark's Picks specifically because it's like really quick and easy, and like it's just great, like simple, and the way you have the links, you have it all there. So
yeah, you can just Google Mark's Picks with an apostrophe. Yeah, like Mark and apostrophe S Picks.
Subscribe, you will not be sorry. You will love it. So that's my my tip from a personal user. So this has been great. I can't believe it's been 15, 16 years, since we first met over the phone. It's so crazy, I know. So, I really appreciate, all of your support. I appreciate all your wisdom. I do want to tell you that I always thought you were a role model for aging gracefully, but just listening to this conversation and, hearing everything that you've written about that I've read, but, just verbally from you, is definitely the perfect role model for this topic. You have done it great, and you're walking the walk, and that nothing is better than, well, it's true. It's like you see people, right, all the time that, they say one thing and then they, their actions don't match up, with their story. And consistency of message and just being transparent and real and authentic, which describes you perfectly, is really refreshing, and I have really appreciated everything that you shared.
Thanks so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it's true. So thank you so much, and we'll be in touch, and we look forward to doing some more educational webinars with you.
Thank you so much for having me.